Hello, this is the Virtual Crime Book Club. I am Rebecca Bradley. The date is Monday the 15th of August. We are discussing Missing Presumed by the late Susie Steiner. Spoilers will be discussed, so if you're watching this as a video rather than engaging in the conversation here, be aware that we'll discuss the ending and who did what. Susie Steiner died last month at the age of 51, 3 years after being diagnosed with incurable brain cancer. As well as that diagnosis, Susie had been living with a condition that was gradually taking away her eyesight, and she had been diagnosed legally blind, and yet she still continued to write some brilliant crime novels. I chose Missing Presumed as this month's read to honour Susie Steiner and the work that she created. So tonight we're going to discuss Missing Presumed. Now I'm going to open with the usual question, and obviously not everybody is going to like every book, but I'm not going to dwell on too much on the people that didn't enjoy it that much this month. I'm not going to ignore people, but we're just not going to go too in depth on the negatives this month. I hope everybody finds that reasonable. So did you enjoy the book?
Yes.
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 Absolutely.
That's good. Now, I don't want anybody to don't think they can say anything. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just not going to go as in depth as I usually would on anything. That was all. So do feel free to say what you want to say about the book, but I'm just not going to maybe go in depth and ask you your reasons, etc. So we've got some yeses. What did you enjoy about it? Do we have anybody that didn't enjoy it?
I didn't particularly enjoy it. I found it was jumping from one character to another, doing the narration. I found that a bit difficult to keep the thread going.
Okay, so there was too many points of view for you, Margaret.
Yeah.
Okay, and Craig, you were?
I enjoyed it, but I found the beginning really good because it got right into the issue. I felt it lost the thread throughout the centre of the book. Then it came really good at the back. But just like Margaret, I found it easy to pick up and put down because the chapters were like per person, and it was about that. But within that, they seem to jump around all over the place. 1 minute talking in the first person, and the next they're reminiscing about something, and that I found difficult. But I liked the story.
Yeah. Okay. So who wants to tell us what they enjoyed about the book?
I read this book twice. I read it when it first came out, and I thought it was really novel because she used texting and websites, and it seems like that's so much a part of our life. It's hard to see where we were more a dozen years ago. And so in preparation for today, I had to reread it because I couldn't remember exactly all the characters and everything. I think that I think it was also novel at that time, or more unusual to have the different characters and to have the different chapters from a point of view. That has become more popular, I think, with a lot of writers. I just read a book that was published this last month, and they did the same thing. I liked her character development, and I really enjoy books where the author pays attention to the location, so that you feel like this book was set in England. It wasn't set any other place, and France, of course, at the end. And I liked the fact that the mystery wasn't straightforward, that it turns out the person who they thought was dead, you know, is alive. And there was sort of a mystery within a mystery. So I enjoyed it first reading, and I enjoyed rereading it for today.
Yes, I also read it twice, once originally and then obviously for this evening. Going back to the point of view thing, not specifically for this book, but for crime books in general, what do readers think about points of view in books then? Do you prefer a single point of view in a book, or is it okay to have 2 or more points of view from characters?
I'm finding that it's becoming more prevalent, I guess, and I've read a lot of books this year that have been from multiple points of view, and I actually find it really helpful. And if the characters are really well developed and really well thought through, it adds a whole new dimension, seeing the storyline develop from different angles. So yeah, I'm a fan.
Anybody else have thoughts on how they read their fiction?
I also like books with different points of view. I enjoyed this book, and because it's interesting to see how different characters think of the same situation, or how does one character sees the other character. So I think that's quite interesting. I also read lots of different books now with different perspectives, and I quite like it. And I like this book. I like the characters and the way she writes. And yeah, I enjoyed it, and I also enjoyed the mystery, because I could guess something, but more towards the end, so it wasn't obvious from the middle of the book. Sometimes it is. So yeah, it was a good one.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it. I haven't really got any strong opinions about, you know, whether I like different points of view or not, but I did like this book. I like the characterizations, and I like the fact that Davy and Manon kind of swapped their outlook for a while. She was always really negative, got in a relationship, became positive, and continued to be a bit more positive after that. Whereas, you know, he'd been in a long-term relationship and then realised it wasn't for him. So I like that switch as well. I think the story was good. I think I was looking for other things as well. And I think at one point I thought her boyfriend might actually be, you know, part of the criminality, but I think I was just, that was just a stretch too far. But, you know, I enjoyed it.
yeah. When we, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I thought I was going to, initially when I started the book, I thought I was going to struggle with it because I wasn't actually quite, for me, it was very much a slow burn. And by the time I got to the end of it, I thought, yeah, this was a really good read. But it was a slow burn. And one of the reasons was I wasn't sure whether I actually really liked the character of Manon. And I'm still unsure, so much so I've had to get the second book out of the library just to work out whether I like her or not. And I say, but I think that is, I mean, that's good in a sense to actually have a character that provokes feelings where you sort of like you either like or dislike the character, just to feel very sort of like blah about it. Well, you know, have nothing, you know, you don't know whether what you think about the character. I think that can be, you know, quite negative on a book, but it's nice to have a character that you can engage with even if you don't particularly like.
I didn't really like Manon because I thought she was really, really needy, but I really enjoy reading her. I think she was very well characterized, but I didn't really like her. I was like, oh my God, this woman, she's too needy. And she's like, I'm crying because I'm by myself and I don't have kids and all of this. It was a bit too dramatic for me.
Why, when I got to the end of it and I saw that she started to build more of a, if you like, more of a personal life outside the job, I kind of thought, I'm going to have to find out more about where this goes because I might actually like her better now because she might be less needy.
But she's kind of
I agree. There were some elements of it that I didn't like. There were some elements of her I didn't like when she found out her sister was pregnant and she was like really negative. But then, as you say, towards the end, she did redeem herself a bit by adopting that boy. But I'm not sure about that situation either. So, like you, it'd be interesting to see how that develops in another book.
Yeah.
Do you think protagonists have to be likable in a book?
Clearly not, otherwise I probably wouldn't have gone for the second book. No, I think the more important thing is that they engage, is they get a response from the reader. I mean, as I say, to have just no response, sort of like I'm completely neutral on this character, actually is probably not going to be a terribly great series if you're trying to build around one character. I wouldn't have thought.
I think they've got to be interesting rather than likable.
Yeah. Yes.
You've got to connect with them, haven't you?
Yes.
Jodie, you're new to the group, aren't you?
Yes.
Yes. What did you think?
I
Not
love
to put
the
you
way
on the spot, but I don't want to ignore you all meeting and you go away and think, oh, that was a bit. Everybody knew each other, so just jump in.
I love her descriptions. You know, in fact, I wrote down so many of them. Just, you know, where one place, she had to make herself defrost. Just the house smells of wood smoke in the outdoors, an oxygenated, muddy smell that is not quite damp. I mean, her writing was so descriptive, but in such a good way. That's what drew me into it. What the character I didn't like was Edith's mother. I really didn't think that I thought she turned a little bit, and I felt more sorry for Edith at the end of it, I think, than I did. I don't know. Edith's mother bothered me, and it still does.
She was brutally hard on Edith at the end.
She was.
Yes.
But Edith deserved it, right? I thought that Edith deserved it because, my God, everybody was looking for her. Everybody was worried. The police was spending like these millions of pounds, and she was like having a little holiday in France. I was very annoyed also. So.
Yeah, her best friend killed herself as well. So that wasn't very kind, was it?
Yeah.
When we first meet Manon, she's out on a date from the internet and isn't particularly thrilled about it. Did you find this way of meeting her, did it connect you with her more as a person rather than just a cop turning up to a crime scene, which is how a lot of our crime novels that we've read have started? Did the more personal start connect you to her, or did you find you didn't need that?
I thought that was good, actually, because I thought it was probably well observed for a young or a woman in her 30s who's on her own. I thought it was that she would have a personal life or be trying to maybe look for Mr. Right or by whatever means. And internet dating is very much a thing. So I thought that was quite good because it sort of like set her in a time and a place and made her feel quite real quite early on.
Yeah. What did you like or dislike about her?
Well, I liked her sense of humour. You know, there was quite a lot of humour in it, and I liked that. But I think, as we said before, you know, she could be kind of quite hard, and you know, it's all to do with her childhood, isn't it, and her mother dying early. But the relationship with the sister, I think she could have, got in contact with her rather than the other way around.
Yeah.
Woods. I liked her with her crazy hair and her strange attitudes and her disheveled appearance. And I just thought, but she didn't give up. She was personally unhappy. I think she felt that she'd had some bad points in life and just couldn't get beyond them, but she kept going and she was very dogged, and I kind of took to her for that. So, but I just thought, you know, she had some questionable taste in men, but, you know, what do you do? But, you know, but, you know, I really quite liked her, and I liked the description of her and the description of most of the people. And I thought there was a little bit of coercive control with Edith's father, and maybe that's why her mother was the way that she was, and I don't know, but it's all very complex. But, you know, to have this woman in France in the end, I just wanted to go out and thump her. But, you know, because it was really all her fault, and she was really quite flighty more than anything else, and rather indulged. But it was interesting to have her father have that all falling on top of him, and I was really quite pleased about that. But anyway, but getting back to Manon, I loved her, and I can see her in my mind's eye with her eating habits, which weren't so crash hot, her dishevelled clothes, and her wild hair. So I can see her really well.
She was very well drawn.
Yes.
What were you going to say, Craig?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say the words "get a grip" kept coming to me in her character. I absolutely loved her as a character, but when she was with that chap, she had a relationship for a while. You know, it was she was always weeping and stuff. I was like, come on, you're a strong police officer. Don't be like this, you know. But yeah.
The one thing I did think there was, I thought that was quite a well drawn, well observed, that particular relationship, because I gather from my daughter, who is in her 30s, that's exactly the way men behave these days. You know, no commitment, whatever, and and don't, you know, have their fling and they move on, you know, much more quickly than women do. I get the impression. So I thought that was pretty well observed, actually.
And I can tell you, as a retired police officer, that they're just human beings that have their own difficult home lives and personal lives. So, yeah, we just see them out on the streets doing their job, but they're people when they take their uniform off. So yeah.
I also liked it that she was a sergeant, because quite often central characters are, you know, inspectors or higher ranks, but she's a sergeant, which is slightly different.
Yes. The rank thing, the sergeant is more realistic because they are more likely to go out and do more. I write an inspector because they actually make the decisions, so it's either or, but the sergeant, they actually are on the ground and doing more. So yeah. The book starts with a missing person rather than a murder. Did this intrigue you enough to continue reading, or were you expecting a murder?
I was hoping she hadn't been murdered. I'd have been disappointed if they'd found the body, because it's more intriguing not knowing what's happened to her.
Yeah.
Because we always open our crime novels. Every book we've read so far, I think, has started with a murder. So were you intrigued enough by the start of this to continue, even though there wasn't a murder? Excuse me.
Yeah, that's because it was so deftly written, and you know, you were intrigued with Manon, and then you thought, okay, right, I need to keep going, and no, yeah, I never even thought of it that way.
I think on reflection, I think that's actually a very clever way to do it, actually, because the murder is actually not Edith. Although right at the beginning you think, oh, maybe there's a body going to turn up somewhere and we're going to find out what happened to her. But I think instinctively you start off from the premise that she is dead, and they are going that it's going to be to solve her murder. And of course the actual murder is the other lad that ended up in the river, her father, you know. And of course that is quite, I think that's really quite cleverly done, actually. It's just a different approach, really. as you rightly say, so many novels, virtually, you know, I'm now trying to think of ones where they don't start off with the body or or getting into the mind of the murderer and about why he or she is the way they are. And so, yeah.
But often a person does
isn't
go
it?
on to become a murder, or a body turns up. So I was expecting something to happen for quite a long time in the book. I wasn't at all disappointed. I thought it was a good book, and I absolutely loved her descriptive style.
Yes,
I really
It was good.
felt very involved in. I got such beautiful pictures of the scenery, of the people. I thought her writing style was extremely good. And yeah, really enjoyed it.
I thought it was beautifully written and descriptive without being too lyrical. It was beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
I grew up reading Agatha Christie as my first crime series, and I used to joke that she and I also was reading Rex Stout at the same time. He was a little bit different, but that the murder would always occur by, I think it was like page 69. And that's another, I think, recent phenomena, that the murders occur either before the beginning of the book or at the beginning of the book. And sometimes I feel, and I've said this before, I'm somewhat critical, is that I feel sometimes the books are driven by movies and TV series. And so it's more difficult to have a TV series that is a slow burn, because then people drop off. You know, they may watch the first episode, but they won't hang around for 2 or 3 episodes to see if there's actually going to be a murder. And so it doesn't bother me when the murder doesn't occur instantly. The other thing about the book, and maybe you're going to address this later, is family and family connections and family estrangement.
Sorry about
and the only thing I wished about this book a little bit is that there's so many complex relationships, particularly between Miriam and Edith, and Miriam and her husband, because, you know, at the end, that's pretty explosive that, you know, you didn't have any idea your husband was stepping out with other men, and her husband, his attitudes towards relationships, and he may have been a sort of a typical, I don't know how to say it, but he had, I thought we were in this relationship and it was all about money, and yet he had really been about relationships and money and power. And so that was really quite interesting. And the juxtaposition of the Bradshaw's relationship and estrangement from her family, because at the beginning of the story, she hadn't spoken with her sister for 3 years. And then her sister out of the blue says, I'm married, I'm pregnant, I'm living in Kilburn. And so I thought that was interesting too.
Going back to the crime novel thing with murders, do you think the tendency to always start with a murder is necessary to catch your attention, or do you just think that's what the publishing industry thinks?
Me, I quite enjoy a book that only has the murder like 100 pages on, because I quite enjoy the development of characters and understanding some relationships before we get to the murder. So I like the books from Elizabeth George, you know, the Inspector Linley series and things like that. She always spends, I don't know, like 100 pages just developing different characters and setting the scene, and everything is very slow burning, I think. And I quite enjoy this. I don't mind reading like 400 pages when the first 100 nothing really happens, except the development of some characters or setting the scene. And so I quite enjoy this. For me, it doesn't need to, I don't need a murder just at the beginning. So.
Quite often they kind of make you think that somebody is murdered, a bit like this one, because Gone Girl was a big seller, wasn't it? And
yes.
She actually wasn't murdered in the end. And actually, it's one of the few times that for that book, I thought the film was better than the book, but I did enjoy this book. Yeah.
And also Girl on the Train, that was a huge seller, and you didn't know if anyone was murdered. So yes, there are books that have that don't start with a crime scene, a murder. So yeah, good. What are they?
But do you think that might be different if you're writing standalone work as opposed to a series about the same people? Because kind of if you're writing a series about the same people, you're getting the ongoing character development throughout the series. So would you not necessarily maybe have to have the murder earlier, which rather is Vera said about the Elizabeth George ones, which are obviously a series, and I know you say so. I've not actually tried those, but I've got the first one on my my to be read pile. So I shall definitely, I'll be interested to read that and see how I feel about it there.
Yeah, she spends lots of pages just describing characters, not the main ones.
Yeah,
but she sets the scene in very detailed way.
Okay. But I'd be interested to.
Do we have to have it as a murder? Would we be satisfied with a crime novel that wasn't even a murder, but was another serious crime?
Yeah. Like a kidnap and an abduction. So, which of course this could have been a straightforward abduction.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
It really depends also on the characters and how thrilling it is, because I think it was, I like this book, and I wanted to know what happened to her because I was quite intrigued. So I find the murder more interesting, maybe. But a murder is better.
I prefer a murder or a missing person. I prefer a murder or a missing person, I think. Kidnapping is slightly, when there's a mystery about the missing person, not just a kidnapping. I'm not keen on heists and things like that. Yeah, good old-fashioned murder.
There are a series of books, actually. Tim Weaver, I think, does a book on missing people, a series on missing people.
Very few of this.
Yeah. So, red herrings throughout Missing Presumed. What were your thoughts as you were reading the book? What were your thoughts on where it was going, who had done what, and were your thoughts correct?
Well, I thought that man that came into her life, who was the man with the dog and observing everything, I thought, Ma, don't tell me she's going to go down that path and have him, the love interest being the murderer or whatever. And but then I found no, that didn't happen, and it kept me going forward. So that was one big red herring that I thought, yes, she did go there. So that worked it out better for me. But as for not having a murder, except for the suicide, but not having a murder in the end of it, it didn't matter to me. It was just the chase to find out what was going on was that kept me turning those pages.
Of course, there was the other big one. It was like the guy who'd been convicted of the sexual assault. And he was obviously connected, but in a way that none of us, well, I certainly didn't spot that how he connected with the rest of the story. But as I say, it was kind of like, I'm a really obvious candidate for this, and of course he wasn't. It was very good. I thought that.
I was like red herring about the boyfriend, that they couldn't positively track his drive from his mother's house home. And they never tracked that, but then it moved on, and, you know, he had nothing to do with that.
So did you find that you were trying to figure it out, but you were surprised?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
I thought it was quite, I mean, I thought the way she pulled it together was very good, actually, because I didn't really spot it. I right up until, you know, till the end.
So the ending was it, sorry, what was that, Lynn?
Yeah, I did think the father had something to do with it, but didn't know exactly what. Yeah, and I didn't guess all the detail about her being taken over to France by the trafficker.
So was everybody surprised by the ending?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't see that coming at all.
And it was plausible.
Were you satisfied with the ending? Did it feel like it came together?
Yeah, I think everything came together because all the loose ends and everybody that was mentioned was related in some way. I would have preferred if Edith would have been prosecuted or something. I was quite annoyed with her, but otherwise I was satisfied.
I think there was a chance that she was going to be prosecuted, wasn't there? But you never knew either way. It was in the hands of the lawyers.
I like the fact that it didn't wrap up on the last page. That after we discovered that Ian was the murderer, that there was that Miriam went and found Edith, and they had discussions, and that there was still more to the book than surprise, you know, here's the ending. And I liked it that she took the time to tie up some loose ends, because I think there was just a lot there that she put in it, I thought, in the last pages that was very helpful.
What were your feelings on Manon's arc? Because she went from starting at the start with internet dating, and then at the end wanting to adopt a grown child. That is quite an arc for a character to go through. What were your feelings going through that?
It was nice to see her mature. She matured through the book, and I think she's more solid.
Yes,
but maybe not for the second book. I've got the second book waiting for me at the library.
Yeah, likewise.
How did everybody else feel about that arc? It was a big arc,
but it was believable. You know, when you look back now, you see that, you know, it wasn't that long a time frame, but it was believable. You could understand how she would go through that. I mean, the resentment against her sister and her pregnancy and her happiness, and then sort of being a shut down person to opening up or flowering and developing, and then her hard work and her relationship with Davy and the rest of the crew, and you know, you could see her, and of course with this young lad and her nurturing factor coming through. You could, you know, it was believable. But when you, like I said, just here thinking, when you look at how the time frame was, it is a big arc, but it was believable, totally believable.
The only thing that I struggled with was the fact that the child that she was going to adopt was the brother of her, and I'm not sure that it had been all very close and like I'm not sure that would sit very well with other people, and so that I struggled with.
It may not be realistic, but I think it was acceptable within the book. She was also looking for a sperm donor as well online, wasn't she? So
But when you think how long ago this book was written, she has so many ideas which are really very current now. I mean, I think if I'd read it, was it 10 years ago? I wouldn't have been thinking so much about internet dating. I certainly wouldn't have been thinking so much about the LGBT community. You know, everything about it, even the as you, I think it was Jane, mentioned about the policing. It seemed very, very, very modern.
It does.
Well, internet dating is
Well,
a big thing since the late 90s. When I finished college, everybody was doing internet dating, mid-90s.
Okay. Well, it's me, I'm out.
It's aging well, though.
Yeah. Yes.
As a book, because some haven't aged very well because technology moved way past
quickly.
Some of the books that were written pre-mobile phones and computers and things. They didn't age very well. So does anybody else have anything they want to say about Missing Presumed?
I'm looking forward to reading more of Manon and her life. So I'm looking forward to book number 2.
So I'll come back to you in a second, Craig. We'll follow on from Lorraine's. Who is going to read the next book?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Possibly.
I already have.
Yes, I've read all 3. They're very good. Craig, what were you going to say?
So I was just going to say I liked her research. I mean, I don't know about sort of the police elements, but in the prison system, she was spot on. So she'd obviously done some good research and the terminology and the words and the prisons she used and bits and pieces like that. And she was really switched on. So for me, knowing that sort of field, it was very, very believable, you know, that side of it. So I was quite pleased about she'd done her research well.
Yes, she was a Guardian journalist. So she was very good at research anyway. And in her acknowledgements, there are acknowledgements to 3 police officers, I think, and somebody in the medical area. So yes, she obviously did put some research into it. So yes. But journalists, I think, are particularly good when it comes to crime novels, pulling all their information together for them. Anybody else have any thoughts on this one?
Oh, I was just going to say, I thought it was quite poignant because, you know, Manon lost her mother when she was, you know, I think was she about 10 or 12 or something, and now this lady has passed away. I don't know, I know that she had children, I'm not sure if they were grown up.
No, they're not very old.
Yes, I thought that was, you know, and also she mentioned in the class right at the end when she was doing the Pilates or whatever, she alluded to Olivia Newton-John. And, you know, just the time of that was quite interesting as well.
Yes, definitely. I'm sorry, my
It started raining. I've been sitting in the dark because I'm in a flat and it's been quite hot, but it's starting raining quite heavily now, so I'm quite pleased.
Yes,
we'll switch the lights on in a minute.
It'll be cooler tonight. So generally the group has enjoyed Missing Presumed.
Good choice.
By Susie Steiner. And at least half of the group are going to go forward to the next book or already have.
Yes.
So it's been a very positive month. I shall stop. Anybody got anything to say before I stop the recording? No, okay.